This is Glenn Beck. If you don't know him, he's a right-wing radio host, political pundit. He's a Mormon, complete nutcase. And hilariously, in 2016, he was super opposed to Donald Trump. Oh my God, he was really oppositional to Trump in 2016. And then he won. And now we found ourselves at a point where he's campaigning for Donald Trump in 2024 and talking about how honest and upstanding and deep down good Donald Trump and his children are. I mean, oh my God, dude. Just let's talk about him. I've been looking for a reason to talk about this clip we're about to watch. I just want to give you an idea of who he is if you're unfamiliar. So listen to this. This is him talking about Jehovah's Witnesses in World War II.
The other star that I have, I'm sorry to say I left it backstage, is purple.
Talking about the badge, I guess, a star or whatever. He's talking about the badges that people wore in World War II that Hitler made people wear. Okay?
Does anybody know what the purple triangle was?
Jehovah's Witnesses.
No, not gay.
It was Jehovah's Witnesses.
That was pink. Brown was gypsy. Black was anarchist. Purple, Bible scholar.
No, it was Jehovah's Witness. What are you talking about? Dude is just like pulling this right out of his... And this isn't even the kind of mistake that he maybe heard somewhere and repeated. This is Glenn Beck. He made this up. This mistake is nowhere to be found outside of Glenn Beck. It didn't mean Bible scholar. It meant Jehovah's Witness.
Scholar. If you knew anything about the Bible, you were an enemy of the state.
No? It's just a complete lie.
Why? Why? Because the truth shall set you free, not work. The truth shall set you free.
Actually, religion in the Third Reich was very popular. Hitler shouted out to religion all the time. Did he personally believe it? I don't know. He was not an atheist. Absolutely no chance he's an atheist. I'm leaning toward he's probably Christian, but it was a kind of a distorted version of Christianity that many people may not recognize as Christianity anymore because they de-Judaified Christianity or de-Judaized Christianity. They removed Judaism from it, which is quite a feat when you think about it because I read about this in my book, by the way, owenmorgan.com. Was Hitler an Atheist is the title of the book. Check it out. It's on Amazon. Also everywhere. Audible. It's released now, I believe. By the time you see this, it'll be out. Hitler believed, in my opinion, in a Nazified Christianity. So the beliefs, it was a full-blown kind of denomination of Protestantism that had fully taken over the Protestant religion in Germany from 1933 clear through to the end, 1945. In their effort to remove Judaism from Christianity, they basically started by removing the Old Testament. They got some Bible scholars up there. Let me rephrase. There was an election for Reich bishop. The bishop, the head, basically the president over the Protestant denomination. There are 28 different church districts in the Protestant religion. It was to the north in Germany. Catholics were to the south. So in northern Germany, 28 districts, somewhere around 18 of them were Lutheran, 4 or 5 were Reformed Church, basically the predecessor to Presbyterian, and the rest were United churches. They were a combination of Reformed and Lutheran. Anyway, for the first time, they get a Reich bishop, a guy that is kind of over top of all of it, and they held elections, and they voted in this guy named Friedrich Bodelschwing, and he was in office for all of 1 month. He was not a Hitler-loving Nazi, although he did agree with a lot of the anti-Jewish stuff. It's more of a moderate, but Hitler didn't like him. He didn't want him in there, so he started this gigantic harassment campaign against Bodelschwing, having people call him at all hours of the night and sending him letters protesting outside of his office and everything. He resigned after a month, and they held new elections. In those elections, Hitler put his thumb on the scales by instructing all of the Nazis to vote in church elections. All of them. It was a mandate. You must vote in these church elections. He publicly endorsed Bodelschwing's opponent, which was a guy named Ludwig Müller. So he publicly endorsed him, And they did all kinds of any little dirty tricks they could possibly do to get Ludwig Muller in. They did it, and it worked. He got voted in, but with 2/3 of the vote, basically. That was a denomination basically called German Christians, is what they called themselves. They were adherents to positive Christianity. They called it positive Christianity because they were sick of being torn down all the time. Like the Versailles Treaty kind of hurt their pride. So they wanted something positive. They're going to go with positive Christianity because it's positive about the German people and hating Jews. Anyway, positive Christianity's, what would you call, like doctrine or ideology or whatever, their dogma involved removing the Old Testament. So they set up these meetings where they get Old Testament scholars in to argue in favor of keeping the Old Testament. But the conversation's happening now. So they get a bunch of people in to debate this stuff, and eventually they just remove the Old Testament. And then they start removing stuff from Paul. You know, Romans was gone. I don't know. A whole bunch of others. Hebrews, gone. A whole bunch of stuff was gone. They basically were left with like the gospel accounts and some other things. And they reworked Christianity to be something completely new, just based on what they had removed. That was positive Christianity. That was the German Christians, and they were very much supported by Hitler. Very much supported by him. Additionally, German Christians made up about 20% of the Protestant church in Germany in 1935 or so. About 20%. The confessing church, the opposition to the Nazified Christianity, was about 10%, give or take. Everybody else, the other 60, 70%, whatever it is, they were all from a group called intact churches. And the intact churches pretty much didn't care. They were along for the ride. They mostly probably agreed with the German Christians. Some of them probably agreed with a little bit of the confessing church. But they were just going along and doing their business, and that was it. Hitler supported Christianity through the entire thing. He had to, because he knew that it could break his power base. Whether he believed or not, I don't know. I think he believed in a version of positive Christianity, which may not be recognizable to modern-day Christians, but it was Christianity. They believed in Jesus. They believed that they'd go to heaven and all that other stuff. They just removed Judaism from it. That's all. Anyway, Glenn Beck is just like rewriting history here. This is Holocaust revisionism that he's doing right now. Hitler did not hate Bible scholars. The Purple Triangle was not for Bible scholars. It was for Jehovah's Witnesses. And by the way, the reason that Hitler got into it with Jehovah's Witnesses, it was on principle. They were two conflicting totalitarian systems. This was like admitted to by Nazi leadership in the Nuremberg trials. Again, I go into the whole thing in my book if you want to read it. Audible and Amazon, owenmorgan.com. Anyway, Was Hitler an Atheist is the title. They got persecuted, Jehovah's Witnesses specifically, because they refused to say Heil Hitler. And that greeting was mandatory at a certain point. Like, you answer the phone like that. Heil Hitler, you know? As you're walking down the street, you say, Heil Hitler, waving at people and stuff. And Jehovah's Witnesses wouldn't do it. And it was, you know, they caught notice. Like, people noticed what was happening, and they started putting them in camps. Additionally, they refused to vote. That was a big deal. That got Jehovah's Witnesses, that painted a gigantic target on their backs. And Jehovah's Witnesses refused to join the military because they were pacifists. All that stuff combined led to Hitler persecuting them terribly. Anyway, it wasn't because they were Christian. Hitler was a Christian. The Nazis were by and large Christian. It was a Christian structure. There were a few pagans that, you know what, let me put it this way, 98.5% of Germany believed in God. 95% were Christian explicitly. So Hitler was not like an atheist trying to hurt Bible scholars, just making this shit up.
Why? Because the truth shall set you free, not work. The truth shall set you free. If you know the scriptures, and you truly know the scriptures, you know the scriptures are not to dominate someone. That's unrighteous dominion.
Really? You're not supposed to dominate people with the scriptures, you say. Interesting. Go on.
Somebody behind my chalkboard? Thank you. Here's the purple triangle.
Yeah. Yep, there you go. Purple triangle. That's true. Anyway, as far as I remember it, people are actively trying to dominate using the Bible. I'll just show you one basic example. Good friend of Glenn Beck's, matter of fact, Lance Wallnau, explains how he intends to dominate the United States. He explains his Seven Mountains dominionism philosophy, where he wants to get people to the tops of these key areas of society: art and government, military and education, and so on and so forth.
3% of the population, roughly 3 to 4% of the population, are radical leftist elites.
I mean, that's just completely made up, but okay.
30% of the population are evangelical born-again Christians that are inclined to go towards Pentecostal language. I mean, we're really out there. 30% against 3%, but they neutralize the church because they're also in religion. They changed the definition of marriage, so they've taken over family. They've totally taken over academia, so the education institutions are teaching leftist theology or leftist ideology and silencing conservatives.
FYI, this plan that he's laying out, how he wants to get people to the top of these areas, this is Nazi propaganda. This is what the Nazis claimed Jews were doing to take over society, getting people to the tops of these areas of society. It is so on the nose. Oh my God.
They're controlling government right now. They've taken over legacy media, Hollywood, entertainment, and arts, and now they've got Wall Street. This is 3%. 30% of the population is Christian. How is it that 30% are dominated by 3%?
Like words out of Hitler's mouth. The 3% are controlling everything at the top. This is Nazi propaganda that Lance Wallnau is repeating. Remember, friends with Glenn Beck, know each other, have worked together, that kind of thing. Have both sat with Trump and spoken to him, prayed with him, and all that other shit. The point is, Glenn Beck is telling us that Christianity is not about domination. Really? Okay, wow, that's interesting. I didn't expect to hear that from Glenn Beck, of all people. Anyway, listen to what Glenn Beck had to say about Trump in 2016.
You lose your word. You lose your honor. There is nothing that will impact your life more.
October 2016, right before the election.
Life more than that. Ever. Ever. I will not return to him and have him say, hang on just a second. I sent you down at a specific time, did I not? Yes, you did. And this is an eternal plan, right? Yes. You weren't born for a happenstance. It just didn't happen that you popped out in America at this time, right? No, Lord. I know there is a plan to everything you do. Okay, so I set you in America at its time of crisis. I gave you parents who taught you my words. They filled it. You even went to one of the best universities based on my word.
Wait, so I think he's speaking at Liberty University. It's not the best university at all, but is he saying that God chose not to give people good parents? Some people he granted good parents to? Okay.
And help me out again. You did what? Because I'm just looking here, and I know what it says because I wrote it. So I know what it says, but help me out. What part of stay away from men like that? What part of, Lord, we had the Supreme Court quote this, because I played this out in my head. What am I going to say to him? You don't understand? You weren't there?
So he's opposed to Donald Trump in 2016 is the point. Here's another one.
Donald Trump, I really truly believe, is a very dangerous man. If you listen to Chris, some of the things he said this weekend, I could go on Fifth Avenue and I could shoot people and I wouldn't lose a single vote. He's joked about killing reporters like Putin. The mood of the country is very angry, but you never make a good decision when you're angry. The worst thing we can do is to now start looking at, well, who's going to get revenge? One of the things that Donald Trump does.
Isn't this fascinating? It is so interesting to listen to this guy just completely flip what he's saying today. Like, it's just a 180-degree turnaround from what he was saying just like a week ago. So this is 8 years ago that he's saying this stuff. And today he's supporting Trump. This is just so crazy.
Revenge. One of the things that Donald Trump does, and look, you want to take a shot at me. I mean, look at me, Chris. You can take, there's lots of jokes to be made. So it doesn't bother me. But when you have a guy who is angry and then has an enemies list and starts just to take people down over and over and over again, if you disagree with him, he destroys you. If that's the mood of the country, then we're in more trouble than I thought.
Yeah, we're in trouble. But see, therein lies the problem. He doesn't actually believe that anymore. He appeared at a Trump-Vance rally to, I think it may have been like Carrie Lake. He was endorsing Carrie Lake and stuff. Anyway, listen to what he had to say at this rally.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage founder of Blaze Media and conservative commentator, Glenn Beck.
Well, hello.
He definitely has old plantation owner vibes, right? Is it just me?
Arizona. What an honor it is to follow the next senator from Arizona, Carrie Lake. I am here today because this is the election that will decide who we are, where our children live, the opportunities that they will have. This is to me, a sacred duty and honor, not to just be here, but also to vote. We need to get people out to vote for...
For who? Vote for who exactly, Glenn?
To vote for Donald Trump.
That's an interesting flip.
You don't need me to tell you we live in what I believe are prophesied times. We are living in a time where evil is literally called good and good is evil. Where men can become women and strangely men can also become little girls.
This is just fake bullshit. Why are they like this? Why do they do this? Is it just to enrage people for absolutely no reason? Is it just because they want voter enthusiasm? Is that what it's about? If you can get people pissed off enough, then you can guarantee that they'll vote for you or whatever. This is just disgusting. Nobody is trying to do this. Nobody is pushing for this. No one is... Blah, blah, blah. None of it. He's just making all of this up. Now, people are trans. People can be trans. Yes, that's the case, obviously. And if you asked him, I'd be willing to bet Glenn Beck would probably acknowledge that, yes, that has happened. That trans people do exist. But this whole trans age thing is bull propaganda fabricated to hurt the LGBT community.
If that's not creepy enough. We know about what's happening to our girls. This is the destruction of women. I know there
Suddenly gives a shit about women, huh?
Some women that say, I don't know, I just can't vote for Donald Trump. The policies of the left and Kamala Harris are destroying our women. They are undermining us as parents. Anybody who says that they should be able to counsel my child in secret is a predator.
Are you kidding me? Children should be able to report things and speak to a counselor, like a school counselor. Yes, obviously. Or a therapist, of course. What about the kids who are being taken advantage of by their parents, by their dad or something? What about that? You telling me that this kid should not have access to a mandatory reporter who they can tell this stuff to? He's making this not just innocuous, but beneficial thing into an insane, destructive, evil thing that Satan invented. A beneficial thing where people can speak to school counselors.
This is what we're up against. And for people who say, I don't know if I can vote for Donald Trump.
Ooh, let's hear how he would respond to himself 8 years ago.
The one thing that you cannot question is his children.
What? Yes, you can. I simply disagree.
His children love him and honor him. His children, quite honestly, with that much wealth and that much fame, they should be crackheads.
They are. Don Jr., at the very least, I'm very confident, is addicted to coke. If you watch his appearance at like his podcast, I think it's called the Triggered Podcast or something with Don Jr., it's very clear that he's on coke, in my opinion. And, you know, I have experience with addiction. I have experience with group therapy. I have a degree in substance abuse counseling. I'm very immersed in this world. I feel comfortable analyzing whether Don Jr. is on coke. I'm very comfortable saying that he is. Of course, they're making fun of Hunter Biden here, right?
Well, trying to think if there's an example of that anywhere.
So funny. Just clap your hands into bloody nubs, people.
Where did I leave my Hunter Biden facts? These are people who contribute to society, who honor their father and their mother.
We're talking about Trump's kids? We're talking about Don Jr. and Eric?
I don't know how he did that. He's a genius at business.
No, he isn't. He's a scumbag.
The man should write a parenting book. How did he do it?
Dude, we are just in totally different realities. Like, we are seeing the world from different perspectives here entirely. But you know what? I don't even think that's true. I think Glenn Beck knows. Based on what he said in 2016, he knows that he's lying here. He must, right? He knows he's completely full of...
You're also... I feel prompted to tell you that the biggest...
I don't know, what, somebody yelling?
The biggest, most obvious and dangerous perversion, one that should set everyone's alarm bells off, is this. Every Sabbath, every Sunday, if you go to church, you break bread.
But the Sabbath is on Saturday, but okay.
Break bread in remembrance of him. This is my body, which I have given
That's communion. Get to the point.
for you. The left has perverted that to the point to where it is, this is my child's body, which I will give up for me.
So that's communion now? The left has perverted communion. Instead of eating Cheez-Its, those little Cheez-It looking Jesus crackers, instead of eating Cheez-Its, now they're making crackers out of their children and giving them to people? What? This doesn't even make any sense. Brother, I don't understand. What are you talking about right now? I am trying. So what he's saying, I don't know what that had to do with communion. He's just saying that people are making choices for themselves. Yes, that's what freedom is. First time hearing of this?
That is evil and must not continue.
Okay, so his justification for voting for Trump, regardless of what you think of the guy, abortion. That's it. Abortion. That's what he said. And what is he arguing for with abortion? Abortion has already been ceded to the states or whatever. It's no longer a federal issue. Now states make decisions. So what's he fighting for exactly with abortion? He's obviously fighting for a federal ban, right? He wants to get abortion banned across the board, presumably with zero exceptions. Why else would he be talking about this issue? So I guess Donald Trump committing fraud over and over and over again, even being convicted for fraud, 34 felony counts on fraud and other things, being sued nearly out of existence, being found civilly liable as a rapist. It's okay to vote for him because abortion? And on top of all that, I don't know if you guys knew this. Did you know that Donald Trump, he's run casinos basically like his whole life, a long time. He tried to open a casino in Australia and was denied in the 80s or the 90s, I think, because of his ties to the mafia. They denied his access because of his ties to the mob. That should tell you something. We're not talking about 2 years ago where you can claim that there's some politically motivated something or other. No, this is 30 years ago or more. The dude has been a scumbag his whole life from beginning to end.
We are looking at a relationship with evil that cannot be tolerated. We must. The Constitution is hanging by a thread. It is time for the good people.
Wait, how's the Constitution hanging by a thread? He's just talking about abortion. What does that have to do with anything? Yeah, the Constitution's hanging by a thread because Donald Trump is about to destroy it. You know, with things like this right here.
And again, Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian.
Point is, Donald Trump is genuinely a danger to democracy, like actually. Now, what does he think is hanging by a thread or whatever about to destroy the Constitution? What is the left doing that's about to destroy the Constitution? He knows he's full of He must. He cannot possibly not know, right?
It is time for the good people that know the difference between right and wrong to stand up and save the republic. It is time to call on God's army that is armed with our voices and our vote.
This is just insane. This is absolutely nuts. And you notice in the background, you got signs that say, secure our border. Let me ask you something. Why don't they want immigrants in the country? What is the actual reason, if asked? What is the downside to immigrants? A lot of the time people will say they commit crime. No, they don't. They commit crime at a dramatically lower rate than U.S. citizens. So what's the reason? You know that an economy gets a massive boost anytime you kind of feed labor into the system. The more people are operating in an economy, the better the economy performs. Russia and China have tried to birth their way into a good economy with a baby boom. Told their people they'd pay them $10,000 for every kid that they have. Russia did specifically a couple of years ago during the Ukraine situation when it first started. We don't have to do that in the United States. We have people desperate to get in and start working, adding to the labor force, contributing. Tons of people. What's the downside? It is nothing but beneficial for immigrants to come into the United States. There is only one reason, as far as I can tell, why people wouldn't want immigrants in the United States. I don't know of any other, just the one.
You know, Kamala Harris said just the other day in an interview that if she could do it all over again, what would she change? Is there any policies or anything that she would change? Immediately, the list was endless in my head, and she responded, no, nothing.
I don't know what he's talking about, what the context was. I mean, change anything in the Biden administration or anything in her past. I have no idea what he's talking about. So,
how is this woman the agent of change? How do people get that understanding of who she is? Let me tell you something. If you want change, vote Donald Trump. Things are going to change. Thank you.
wow. Okay. Well, Trump is most definitely the establishment pick at this point. Anybody who wants to control the government is encouraging people to vote for Donald Trump because they know that he'll do anything for them if they get him into office. And that's interesting. He says things are going to change. What? What's going to change? What does he think will change if Trump wins? Exactly. I know what's going to change. What does he think is going to change? This is wild to me, man. It's insane to me that this guy flipped on a dime like this. I mean, tell me what you think about it in the comments. This dude's shameless and so full of